Yeah. Yes.
Made just for my height.
St. Francis in Kilkenny. The monks here live a life of quiet prayer and toil. Their precious water, although vital for life, could often become tainted and could kill you as quick as it could cure you. But grim necessity brings forth the most glorious invention. The clever monks take their water and out of necessity purify it, crafting it into beer. Having picked up minerals on its journey through the limestone rock, the well water here at the Abbey is hard, perfect for the brewing of ale. Each monk would have his own flask and could fill it through the day. And so, by God's grace, time passes for the humble monks of the Abbey in quiet contemplation for 3 centuries. The land was peaceful, the ale was plentiful, times were good, until Henry VIII arrived. During his faithful rule, a terrible judgment came to pass over Ireland. All abbeys and monasteries were abolished. Nowhere was safe, not even the Abbey of St. Francis. Catholics were forbidden from practicing religion, running businesses, or even owning property. It was a dark time, and it continued for many, many years to come. Proceed through the door, and let the Smithwick family take you through the next chapter in the great Smithwick story.
Yeah, he's a... So this is a little recreation of the family room in Kilkenny Lodge. It was the Smithwick home in the last 200-300 years, and thus the place we talk about our family. So we start off with our founder, John Smithwick. He established the company in 1710, which we do like to note is about 49 years before a brewery in Dublin called Guinness was founded. So we're all going to keep that part in mind, because that's all we have on Guinness, please keep it in mind. More notably though, John set up the business in 1710 as an Irish Catholic under the penal laws. Not a good combo. Penal laws have been put there by the colonisers of Ireland to stop native Irish Catholics from doing literally anything. For instance, one of the laws said that Catholics are not allowed to own land, business or property. Yet John was kind of doing all 3 of those. How? Well, of course, John's utilising a unique tactic. I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's called breaking the law. He goes to a guy called Richard Cole for help, because Richard's a wealthy Protestant landlord in Kilkenny. He's unaffected by penal law. Also, Richard really likes money to the point he realised he'll make a lot more than everybody else if he also fronts a lot of Catholics. So he's doing that. John goes in with the proposal of setting up a brewery. Richard obliges. The men set themselves up a stuff called merchant brewers. They can sell stuff like turkey, so not relying on beer solely. But they do need a site to get the brewery going. Now, Richard is friendly with some landlords around the area and eventually comes to a guy called James and asked him if he could buy his site by the river to make his new beer he definitely wasn't making with a Catholic. And James takes up on the offer, and they sign a little lease. That very lease there, in fact, is a little copy of it. And look, there's a lot of legal jargon, and some of you might not be able to read it properly, so I'd just like to point out the two major names on the lease, Richard and James. John isn't one of those names, of course, he's a Catholic. What I'd like to point out about the men is that they've actually got titles to their names, because of course they are quite wealthy Protestant landlords at this time. Richard's titles start here and finish here, so they're about a line long, just tell you who he is, he's a bit wealthy, lives in a nice area, simple stuff. And James, being the guy selling the site, is wealthier, so his titles are longer. I would like to take this moment to say, in my personal opinion, his titles are way too long, in my opinion, because they're not double the length. They start here and they finish there. A third of this lease is one man's name. Mainly because that one guy is actually the Earl of Ormond, in other words, the leader of Kilkenny City, and his house is a place called Kilkenny Castle. I'm sure you've heard of that place. More notably, he makes a nice deal though. Richard only has to pay him £1 sterling for the site every year, in addition to an acetate of something in value of £5 shilling, which the Duke has decided is going to be, very simply put, 2 fat turkeys. Of course, the men with all their turkeys think, thank God we went for them and not chickens. So of course, they took that deal. They set up the business, they bought out the red ale, and slowly but surely, John built up as well. To the point that Smiths became one of the wealthiest businesses in all of Kilkenny City. And despite all that, there is a major problem for John. He died in 1768. And more notably, the penal laws that restricted him were not repealed until 1827, nearly 60 years after he died. Meaning for the entirety of his life, John could never openly say he was the man running this place. It wasn't even known as Smithwicks back then. It would have been something closer to like the St. Francis Abbey Brewery or something along those lines. As such, when John died, his friends in the Cole family are going to have to retain ownership, and they cannot officially give it back to us until the laws get repealed in 1827. Of course, that's when Daniel O'Connell, the Liberator, namesake of College Street up in Dublin, comes along, repeals penal laws, Catholics get their rights back, and that's when, of course, this guy, Edmund Smith, comes along, John's great-grandson. He goes to the Coles with a very simple proposition that, look, his great-grandfather did establish the brewery, it's technically, this is doing awful, one of the worst in the country, actually, so they don't really see this as a loss. If anything, they're happy to give away this liability. Secondly, unlike a lot of Catholics of the time, Edmund has a policy.
The name is John Smithick. My family left England for Wexford, only to be all but wiped out. One lad made it to Tipperary, where the Smithick clan overcame adversity and began to grow again. 20 years later, I came to this very house. It was at this stage that I decided to open my very own small craft brewery. Perhaps it was the echo of the monks' brewing, still ringing in the stones. At the time, due to penal law, Catholics were forbidden from running businesses, so the brewery had to be fronted by my business partner, Richard Cole. One of the stipulations of the deed was that every year we supply James, Duke of Ormond, with 2 fat turkeys. My small local business brewed ale and porter for the people of Kilkenny. I also made a healthy profit importing and selling tea on the side.
That's funny. We sold eggs and butter 2 centuries later.
We even sold mineral water from the well.
Yes, but you didn't have a penal law to deal with. Nobody could really know that I was running the show.
Indeed, but don't forget, I had 2 world wars to contend with.
Sure, at the turn of the century, I nearly had to close the doors. Thankfully, the army came to the rescue. A thirsty bunch they were.
But I lived through the Great Famine. We even opened soup kitchens for the starving.
And during the Great Drought of 1952, we had to divert water from our well to the town, so locals didn't run dry.
Can you believe that it took us nearly 120 years to finally get our name over the door? This was due to the repeal of penal law. Thanks to our good friend, Daniel O'Connell.
Pleasure was all mine, Edmund.
But our influence stretched further than these walls. Edmund himself was voted Lord Mayor of Kilkenny 4 times and helped with the building of the city's cathedral, putting the Smithick name on the Kilkenny map.
We faced adversity head on, and we overcame it, turning Smithwicks from the best kept secret in Kilkenny to a brew famous the world over.
Hear, hear.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, last bit of history just before we get ourselves out of here. 1964, we finally did it. We outsold Guinness for the first time ever. I will stress it was not the last time, first of many times, but was the last time it happened while Walter Smithwick was fully in charge of the company. Only the following year of 1965, Guinness would go on to buy Smithwicks, but I will stress that was at Walter's own request. With the company expanding at such a good rate, he realised he could not keep it going. Facilities weren't the best, sales were starting to plateau, exporting was getting very costly. And Walter recognised a 255-year-old business collapsing while he's the boss doesn't look all that good in the CV. So he saw us to Guinness to make sure we could keep going, and look, we're still here today. We can easily give the guys in Guinness, now known as the Diageo, that much. They know what they're doing. So with that being said, I'd like to follow me through here. So guys, we're going to go through our... Before I get fully further, just a quick check-in. Am I speaking too fast for anyone? Do we all relatively understand me?
Yes.
Yeah, that's all I need. Lovely. With that being said, every beer you've ever had, a stout or an ale, lager, pilsner, it doesn't really matter. They've all had the same four base ingredients. We easily like to attribute this to a law passed in Bavaria, Germany, with the 1500s, called the Reinheitsgebot. It quite literally meant purity law. If you didn't use the ingredients in the law, your beer's not allowed to be sold. Simple as. So people had to get inventive with the ingredients they did have. And then the laws got repealed and people kept using it because the law was a really good template. To the point that, of course, that we follow that template to a T here at Smithwicks. So run through the ingredients as listed in the law. It's barley, water, hops, and yeast. We're going to start off with ingredient number 1. Barley, which we use 3,000 tons of Irish barley every single year, grown here in the sunny southeast of Ireland. It's actually somewhat sunny today, to back me up on that. 98% of this is going to go through malting, the remaining 2% through roasting. And I'm going to focus on roasting first just because it uses the least amount. All you do is you take a 2% raw barley, place it inside of an oven called a kiln, and roast the kiln for 4 hours at 232 degrees Celsius, or about 450 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's it. When it's done, you get your roast barley. It's what gives Smithwicks the distinct ruby red colour we're known for, alongside the little notes of coffee inside. Most ales tend to use it in some way, shape or form. All I would really note is that Smithwicks has the best amount ever used in the history of brewing with 2%. We're totally not biased about that, of course. But look, we don't use it yet, so we will get back to it later on. Our remaining 98% has to get malted now. It's like trying to grow something into a flower and then stopping the flower bit from actually happening. So to do that, you have to steep it inside of a little bath of lukewarm water for about 2-3 days. Slowly turning it over, that's called threshing. That tricks the stuff into thinking it's spring. It'll start germinating, releasing little bits of starches, which allows for enzymes and sugars to release inside to allow a flower to form. Now, as I said, we want to already cut that off, because if we don't, we end up with this stuff here, which is unfortunately what we started the malting with. So we'll just keep going in an endless loop. No one wants to do Groundhog Day, so to stop that from happening, you have to heat it up. And that's where your malting house comes in. So take the stuff now known as green malt, put it on the top floor of the building, because for starters, the top floor is the top floor of a 4-story building. So any bit of heat that's rising up to the building gets caught inside there. And they've also put in a lot of insulation to make sure that happens. Secondly, you've got a big shovel there that you use to scoop up barley and flip it over, and repeat that every 30 minutes over the course of your shift. It stops any excess moisture inside the green malt from germinating, helping maintaining your lovely dry flavours. And probably the probably two more important things to note. You can't rely on random bits of heat to keep the place going, you needed a constant flow. The floor beneath was filled to the brim with fires and furnaces. That place was a sauna. And what's the worst part? It was pre-Union Ireland, so you had 2 shifts, day or night, 12 hours apiece. So as I said earlier, hardest job in the company, but also made it the most wanted job in the company, because everyone very quickly realised you could eat whatever you wanted, you spend it all off while you're working. And if you want to gain the pounds back, as mentioned earlier, Eileen guaranteed these guys a free bottle of Smiths at the end of their shift. I don't know about you, but most people generally don't complain about free beer after work. So with 5 days of that process in mind, you end up with your malt barley. A lovely sweet smelling stuff. It smells kind of akin to kind of caramel or malty biscuits. And look, we'll smell this at the end. You'll get those smells inside. So maybe you won't. That being said, this is actually way too big for brewing. We've got to actually grind it up into a fine little powder known as grist. To get grist, we need a mill. And thankfully, since we're advanced in Ireland, we do not use this thing. We use this thing, the Porteous mill. Very simply put, it's unlike any other mill of its time because it's got a primary and secondary motor. Most mills only have a single motor. The idea is that motor number 1 will run non-stop, 24/7 for about 2-3 years. It breaks, motor number 2 will turn on immediately, keep it running for another 2-3 years. When it breaks, motor 1's been fixed. You can go in tandem every 2-3 years. The average lifespan of a Porteous mill is somewhere in the range of 14 to 16 years running non-stop. Incredibly easy for us, because as I say, most mills part of this only have the one motor, so they're lasting at most 3 years, so major step up. However, there is one slight, teeny tiny problem with this whole setup that really affected Kilkenny, which is that, of course, the people of Kilkenny have a terrible, terrible condition. Since I'm not from Kilkenny, I'm not affected by it. It's called being really lazy. And unfortunately, this machine kind of doesn't work like that. In other words, when motor 2 broke for the first time ever, everyone found that no one had actually fixed the first motor from 3 years beforehand, so this thing just shut down one day. And that would have actually been the end of the company. We're not from the fact that the guys at Porteous had thought of this. Unfortunately, laziness is actually a universal thing. So they accounted for this. They installed this wheel here to manually turn the pins inside, so your engineers had time to fix the motor. I'm going to give it a little stir. You'll understand very quickly why this wasn't really a good thing either. Okay? So, for starters, that's a bit like driving the car without the power steering turned on. Lovely workout you get to do for 10 minutes, you switch over your co-worker, they do it for 10 minutes, and you go back and forth every 10 minutes until it gets fixed. What are the bad parts? Oh, so many. Firstly, the bad part number 1 is that you couldn't run away. The furthest you could go when you weren't on the wheel is basically like where I was standing a minute ago, about here. So 5 feet away is your reprieve, and also, of course, that means you can't escape that lovely, relaxing ASMR noise there. And more importantly, it took 8 hours to get fixed, meaning you spent 4 hours there and 4 hours here in 10-minute intervals. Shockingly, this never happened again. Everyone did actually kind of learn a lesson. And so we get our grist. And all we got to do now is get the grist to here. And I don't mean metaphorically the brewery, I mean literally right here, this very room. This is called the party loft. It's where we did quality control. As such, our vans and horse and carts pulled up right outside these bay windows. They turn the bags of party up here. We come open, check quality inside. If quality is good, it's dry, it's coarse, it's good for brewing an ale. It's bad quality, it's the exact opposite. It's soft, it's moist, and comes together. That's no good brewing, so you have to get rid of it. And since very not lazy people work in Smithwicks, what happens to the bad bags? They get rid of it, of course, in the most efficient manner you can ever think of. They would carefully pick up the bag and throw it outside the front door. They would do that for nearly 70 years straight, to the point that a lot of people in Kilkenny know out here is being called the Dust Bowl. I'm told that's an unrelated reason, which I definitely believe. That being said, the grist is now good to go. Now, key thing before we move on, because of course the key thing with grist is it is quite dry, we kind of need ingredient number 2 to really get into the mix. I might usually want to point out about pictures and stuff, I'm sure that's on lovely gates. That blue thing there is called the sky. I know that was kind of uncommon to see this morning, so if you want to get the nice picture now, that'll be the time, because that cannot last. That being said, more notably, grist is dry. Go through the jars today, because that's the stuff that you can actually get a hint of, I stress hint, that you could get in the red ale. So with that being said, please grab the first jar on your left, should say malt on it. Give it a little shake and take a little smell of it. This is your standard malt barley. And hopefully you do kind of get that caramel, malty biscuit smell I mentioned earlier. But I want to stress, if you don't, that's fine. Smell is so subjective. I can't tell you now the number of people who tell me they got stuff more like soy sauce, cinnamon, sunflower oil, malted milkshakes, maple syrup. Everyone's different. As long as it's somewhat of a malty sweet smell, you are correct. There is no objectivity with the stuff. We'll move on and grab our second jar. It's the roast barley. Once again, a little shake, a little smell. No surprise with this one, it's probably a coffee smell. Now, some people find it's distinctively roast coffee beans, some people find it's more like freshly brewed coffee. Happen any more saying no coffee at all. We got stuff like brown bread, burnt toast, dark chocolate. Again, as long as it's somewhat of a dark roast smell, you're correct. We're going to move on and grab our third jar. It's a spray jar with a yeast oil inside. Grab a lollipop stick from the little glass jars in front of you and just give it one spray at the end. You won't need more than this. This is a very strong smell. Look, if you've ever smelled yeast before in your life, you'll know that firstly this does not smell like yeast, because yes, it's a yeast oil for starter. And more importantly, we're kind of hoping you get, I don't want to say distinctively which one, but I'm kind of hoping you're getting a fruity smell. Some people say stuff like vanilla, some people say more stuff like cherries, some people even say stuff like bananas, pears. And I'm kind of hoping you get those last two. There's fake ones on the table for a reason. Who would have guessed? Because yes, bananas and pears are a smell you can get in our red ale. Reason being, there's a little chemical in the yeast, which is the flavour chemical of fruit. Whatever temperature you do fermentation at for whatever beer you're making will give you different fruits. In our case, it just happens to be bananas and pears. But I stress, these things are esters, they're microscopic, so some people find this banana pear flavour is really overpowering at the back of their throat. Some people find it's just a hint, and some people think I'm crazy because they don't get it at all, they think I'm making it up. I would stress again, there's fake ones here, not to gaslight you, it's just to let you know they're there. I'm not crazy. The sticks are reusable though, so when you're done you can just pop them back where you found them, makes the cleanup a lot easier for me. And we'll grab our final jar on the right here, so the Goldings hops. Take a little shake and smell and you understand why ingredient 3 was left for last. It's, distinct. Now look, everyone tells me they get different smells. For instance, some people give me really weird answers and say stuff like, I like this smell. Some people are more normal and say stuff like, ew, or this smells like feet or something like that. Everyone's different about it, really. All I would note is that if anyone thinks that they like the smell, I remind you right now, these are not Irish hops. Please rethink your answer. Nevertheless, they get 4 infographics because they're very potent. The first one is apple chips. Some people find it's a smoky smell, some people find it's more sweet like apples. Some find it's more akin to pine needles, more fragrant like an air freshener, some find more like natural pine. Some find more akin to edible flowers, stuff like lavenders, daisies, fresh cut grass, vegetable seasonings. I'd be up this party myself, and they all do the exact same thing. They all pollinate. Pollen lands in the soil, helps draw the flavour inside, and get the little notes. Tagging stuff to the final flavour on these infographics. Honey. Bees take pollen, make it into honey. So stands to reason somewhere along the lines the pollen smell sweetens out and becomes a honey-like scent. With that being said, guys, at the end of the day, smell is so subjective. I can't stress to you now the number of people who tell me they get every smell I've talked about in these infographics. They go out and have a red ale, and they don't get a single smell that they said they got here. Because, look, at the end of the day, it's subjective. No one's going to be right or wrong about what they get here. What I would like to quickly note just before we wrap up, guys, is your tokens. I have no idea what you have. I just want to know what you have. If you have the small one here, this is the standard token. It's going to get you either 1 full pint or 1/2 pint of either your red ale, pale ale, Kilkenny cream ale, Yorkshire cider, Guinness Zero, or a mineral of your choosing. If you have the bigger one, this is the paddle or flight ticket. It's going to get you this thing here, a paddle of 3 half pints. Red ale, pale ale, and Kilkenny cream ale. Now, in case you're looking at your standard thick and thinking, oh man, I wish I upgraded the desk downstairs, you're in luck because you can upgrade at the bar for €5 extra. If you don't want to, that's fine. I don't get commission. I don't really care that much. What I would note is the 3 beers themselves, just give you a little idea of what you might want to drink, regardless of whether you have the paddle or not. Number 1 is red ale, lies at the law 3.8%, and of course the beer I've been talking about for what looks like an hour at this stage, so if you learned something, that's what it was. Number 2, the pale ale, the strongest, 4.5%. Use the Amarillos I pointed out earlier. It's got an orangey citrus flavour inside. If you're a big fan of like IPAs or really hoppy beers, that would be the one to go for. But I will note, it is the most bitter of the 3. My personal favourite of the 3 is number 3, Kilkenny Cream Ale. It's the Smithwicks, but 2 little things have changed inside. Firstly, gas content's gone from 50-50 nitrocarbon to 75-25 nitrocarbon. So in other words, it pours the exact same way as a Guinness. Roast barley content's been up from 2% to 5%, so the coffee tones are a lot stronger. Essentially, it's like if Guinness and Smithwicks had a baby, and it got all the best attributes of Smithwicks inside, of course. Because I would note that its strength is 4.3%, making it 0.1% stronger than Guinness. Therefore, it's better than Guinness. But I'm not biased. What I would note, guys, is that if you did enjoy the tour, please do just remember, I was Evan. If you did not enjoy the tour, that's fine. I'm not Evan. Please blame someone out there. That being said, though, have your little red totes at the ready. Will follow me out here, so we'll get you those drinks.
Here we go.
So you can do a red ale, a pale ale, or a Kilkenny. I'll do whatever you said the cream was. That's the Kilkenny? Okay, great. It's awesome.
It's marvelous.
No worries, son. I'm in no hurry.
I was listed. To keep Walter's wishes true, number 1 is of course our red ale.
Alright.
Number 2 is our pale ale, as I said, the most bitter one from us. And number 3 is Kilkenny, just taking the second one. So guys, you stick us down.
Oh, so much.
Standard. What would you like? Sorry? red ale and raisins. Good choices.
Oh yeah. It's cool, isn't it?
Ain't it pretty?
Penny, case.
Oh yeah.
Grab the handle, lift up, and slot yourself in place.
Yep.
There's a lid if you want to hold on to that.
Great. Yep. All right. So go find us a table.
I'm behind you. Just waiting for you to grab a seat.
And here we are.
Look how pretty it is.
We're still doing it.
It is. You're supposed to wait till it all conglomerates.
A little bit. Somewhat.
Well, considering you're
red.
probably going to be finishing mine, you can let me have a small sip of all yours.
That's the red. That's the original Smithwicks.
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 Smithwicks. I taste the bitter.
The middle one's even more.
That's the, now, have you had that one before? This is the pale ale. I taste the citrus in that a lot.
Yeah.
Forget I had your tripod thing in there. Benny. And taste the more bitter in that too.
Good to go over there.
Am I good to go? Look how big it is. They do that perfectly. It's like perfect. I should take a picture of that. Take a picture. Is that thing running?
It is running.
I got you. I mean, it's perfect for it. Wow.
Like it?
Not bitter. I mean, you'll probably be finishing it.